subscribe, and click the notification bell, and I'll do all your shopping for you. Prepare to live off of Slim Jims and green tea for the rest of your life. Well, it's inevitable. Most of us have to go back to Walmart sometime. Gotta eat, right? That's what we're doing today, heading on back to the horrors of Walmart to share some folks' creepy experiences that have happened there. Just the word Walmart instills images of inhuman creatures pushing baskets through aisles. Now, let's see what else they have in store for us, besides competitive prices and abysmal customer service. If you want your story to appear in an episode of Darkness Prevails, share it with us at darknessprevails.org. I'm looking for scary stories from India and stories from paramedics and firefighters. Don't forget to tune in to my podcast to get caught up with the show anytime at dppodcast.com. I don't restock at Walmart anymore. From Travis K. Location unknown. For 2 years, when I was finishing up my junior and senior year at high school, I worked at a nearby Walmart, restocking shelves. I was 18 when I started, having been held back twice during my school career. It was an easy gig. There were some great and funny people that I met there, and to be honest, I do miss it. Problem was, though, there was something very, very wrong with that store. The employees knew it, I knew it, and none of us wanted to talk about it. In the warehouse area where customers didn't go, almost weekly, there would be incidents. Incidents that led to injuries, scares, and plenty of close calls that usually resulted in an employee quitting. Now, it wasn't a badly organized warehouse. It wasn't bad luck either. It's going to sound ridiculous, but something haunted that place. And when I turned 23, when something pushed a TV from a top shelf onto my foot, breaking it, I decided it was time to quit. Let me share a couple of these weird occurrences that went on there. Greg, another stalker who was quiet and huge, would work nights with me. He kept to himself, just getting his work done faster than the rest of us. He was management's favorite guy, but he didn't even give two craps. So when I clocked in one evening to find Greg storming out of the warehouse, skin as pale as a ghost, I had to know what happened. And for the first time in our working relationship, he talked a lot. He was 15 feet up on one of those scissor lifts, filling in a gap with some products on a top shelf. That's when he began to hear something weird behind the boxes. He said it sounded like a low cracking sound, like someone very slowly breaking really thin twigs in their hands. But as he peered in closer to see what was causing the noise, the sound got louder and deeper. Just as he realized it sounded like growling, he caught a glimpse of dark hands reaching out, and in an instant, someone or something had shoved him right off the top of the scissor lift. He only barely avoided losing his life, or at the very least getting seriously injured, because luckily, a pile of boxes in the middle of the aisle that a lazy coworker never took care of saved him. But he did leave that night with a broken rib. Greg never came back to work. On another occasion, I saw something in a very dimly lit corner of that warehouse. Now, we had a water fountain and a fan blowing over in that corner, as it was 90 degrees that night in the warehouse. The stalkers would come over there throughout the day to just cool down before getting back to the heavy lifting. When I was over there for a few minutes at one point, I soon realized I wasn't alone. A particular area near that corner, an aisle where we stored home decor, seemed far darker than it should have been. There was a bright light hanging from the ceiling above it, but as the light fell down upon that area, It was like something there was drinking in every ounce of light. It piqued my curiosity, and I soon found myself stepping over closer to it. The closer I got, the darker the area grew. And then I saw the eyes. They opened suddenly, causing me to shout and jump back, falling onto my side as I stared back at them. They were open for a few seconds, white as fluffy clouds. Then they closed, leaving just blackness as if nothing was ever there at all. Needless to say, I do believe there was something wrong and unnatural at that Walmart. For my safety and sanity, I'm glad I don't ever have to go back. A man wanted to end me over baking soda. From Leon S. Location unknown. I work at a Walmart in a small town. I'm not going to name the town, but I will tell you our town is very well known for substances, if you catch my drift. The busts in our town happen all the time, weekly in fact. A certain white substance is cooked down with baking soda. I'm not sure how you do that, but this will be important to this story. I was at my register. It was getting to be around 10 p.m. when I get off, and I was looking forward to it. I had nobody going through my line at the moment. I walked up to the front of the aisle. This is called red lining. We do this to attract customers who are ready to check out. I smiled and waited as two men stood in produce where they could see me. Their basket contained about 11 boxes of baking soda. Odd, but I've seen stranger. They waited until they saw I was the only cashier. They came over after a time. I saw that one of the guys was about 5'8" and the other was 5'9". They were both covered in tattoos, and they were extremely dirty. "Hi, are you ready?" I said. Now the two of them both looked high, but the one that looked less high and more normal put all the boxes on the belt without even a word. Okay then, let's do this, I thought. I asked how many, so I could quickly just type it in instead of scanning each and every one. Again, he did not reply, so I started to scan them one at a time. As I did this, the definitely high one said something like, "I can't wait to cook it." And instinctually, just trying to make conversation, I asked, "So what you cooking up?" I realized what I had said and the situation, and it was too late. The more normal-looking guy was irritated and immediately angry. We finished the transaction quickly and they began to leave. Shortly after that, I clocked out, even more ready than before to head home. I put on my hoodie and I put my work vest in my locker. I walked outside, walked past a running black Honda Civic that had most of its paint chipped off. I mean, sure, it's not uncommon to pass running cars, or ones that are kind of trashy. I've heard stories of people smoking in them, or doing intimate things to each other, just beyond the thinly tinted windows. But as I walked by, this time was different. I heard a man say, "Look, it's him." When I heard that, I walked faster, trying to get back to my little Honda Fit fast. Once inside, I started the engine, and I tried to rip out of the parking lot as fast as possible. But my car needed to warm up. The guys in that ugly car tailed me all through town. I was afraid they'd do it until I ran out of gas. And then what were they going to do to me? I decided to get onto the interstate, going towards my place. I began to floor it as fast as my little Honda could go. It couldn't seem to do much more than 80, though. Turns out it had a bad cylinder. Perfect timing. I turned off my headlights as well, making it a little bit harder for them to find me. They stayed extremely close to me until I took a sudden turn onto a random side road. They turned too, just in time, but I continued to go on as many little side roads as possible. I prayed that I wouldn't run out of gas. I went as long as possible, as fast as possible, trying to lose them with every turn. At one point, at a certain turn, I was able to lose them for a few seconds. I saw an old abandoned house on this street, so I took a second to park there, hiding my car. I stayed there for an hour, and I didn't see them again. Only after that hour was over did I climb back in my Honda and floor it all the way home, no headlights on. When I made it home, I went right to my bedroom and grabbed my Beretta, loading it, and stayed up the rest of the night, watching outside, waiting for someone to pull up. They never did, and I made it out of this alive. But I know if anything had happened to my car that caused me to stop or slow down, I would not be here to tell this story. Meeting the same creeper twice. From Kristin. Location unknown. When I began my senior year of high school back in 2005, I hung out with a girl named Tammy. Tammy and I were going around to different stores one day, looking for things to decorate a classroom for her teacher academy class. We stopped first at Dollar Tree. Dollar Tree has a pretty decent selection of classroom decor, so we were in the school supplies aisle looking around. Suddenly, a strange man walked up to us. He was a short guy, heavy-set, bald, and had a short beard. He walked up and tried to give us a handshake. Tammy felt obliged to do it, so she stuck her hand out. But instead of a handshake, the guy yanked her toward him hard and pulled her in for a tight hug. Then he forcefully grabbed me by the hand and hugged me, rubbing my frontal area on him tight. While he did this, he made sure to grab my bottom. I pushed myself away from him, looking disgusted. We ran up to the cashier and begged for the manager to kick the man out, and they did. You would think that was the end of it, but sadly it was not. Fast forward 2 weeks later. Tammy and I are at Walmart so she could get some tires on her car. We walk into the tire and lube door, and who do we see? The weird guy from Dollar Tree. He's currently being escorted out by one of the managers. There was no way to get around him because there's only one door in that department. He gave us this really creepy smile as he smacked each of us on the bottom as we passed. God, I did not like that man. And I'll never forget his creepy smile. There was something sinister about it, unsettling. My parents and Tammy's parents both got the local paper one day. This was a few months after the Walmart incident. I was perusing the paper out of boredom, and I came across a mugshot of that man. He had finally been arrested for serial assault. It said a 4-letter R word instead of assault, but I think you get the idea. Plus several unlawful conducts with a minor. I don't remember how long he was going away for, but I hope he rots in jail. That guy was a very sick and deranged man. I now prefer Target over Walmart. From Ocean. Location unknown. I wanted to share this story, which shows how crazy Walmart can be. I don't go there anymore, and I prefer to go to Target, even though it can be quite a bit more expensive, and maybe you should consider changing as well. When I was 17, I used to work for Walmart. When I began to attend college, I had to quit due to time constraints. It was an easy job, even though every now and then you'd run into complete weirdos and even perverts. I was able to deal with the job pretty well, but I didn't stop going just because I quit. When I was accepted into a school across the county, I thought it was the best thing that could have happened to me. A fresh new start, meeting new people, and if I mess up talking to someone, Chances are I probably wouldn't have to see them again if I didn't want to. So I thought this was going to be a great opportunity. I moved into the dorms that they had provided, and I began to unpack my room when my roommate came in. Her name was Amanda. Amanda was an interesting type of person. There was something about her that was off though, but cool at the same time. We did the typical meet and greet, then began to talk about our majors and such. I told her my name was Ocean and she laughed, but I ignored that. Laughing was the usual response after all. A couple of days of living in the dorm afterward, I decided to go get groceries. I could surprise Amanda with my insane amounts of responsibility. It was late and Amanda was out, so I figured it'd be the best time to go. We were poor college students, so I had to go get food from Walmart. It was the least expensive place around. But if I knew what was going to happen there that night, I would have just stayed home, or at least wait until the next day to go. However, I didn't know, and so I went. I entered the store, I think around 10 o'clock that night. Thank goodness this Walmart was open 24/7. Maybe they all are, I'm not sure. Anyway, I grabbed a small basket and went straight for the ramen noodles and mac and cheese, because that's the easiest and some of the cheapest stuff for me to cook. I suck at anything that has to do with making food. I hadn't even realized that there was almost nobody else in that store. Just a couple of cashiers and people who restocked shelves. I remember placing something into my basket. I don't remember what though, when I heard the snapping sound of a camera. I looked around, but I didn't see anyone. I got a little nervous, but I didn't want to leave yet. So I just walked down a few aisles, grabbing random things, just trying to ignore what happened. However, being the klutz that I am, I tripped over my shoelace and fell onto the floor. Everything in my basket flew out, so I had to pick it all back up. I tied my shoes and began to pick up the stuff when I heard the snapping sound again. I stood up and quickly ran to the bathroom, not even bothering to finish up the mess that I'd made. I went to the sink and washed my face. I knew for a fact that what I was hearing was real, but I didn't see anyone doing it. I thought I was going crazy, but then I heard the snap again. This time, I turned around and I saw a man right behind me. A man in the woman's bathroom. His image still haunts me in my sleep. He had a scar above his eye and a black goatee. He had black comb-over hair. He looked to be in his late 40s, and he also held a camera right in front of his eyes, ready to snap another picture. I screamed. He grabbed my arm and spun me around, pinning me against the wall. But I kept screaming. I felt so scared, I even felt like I was going to throw up. He yelled at me. I could barely hear what he was saying. He was so loud, screaming right in my ear. He moved his hand around my body, and at this point I was whimpering. However, before he could get too far, I heard yelling from someone else. Before I knew it, I fell to the ground, basically hugging myself against the wall. I heard a scuffle behind me, grunts and yelling mixed in. When everything stopped, I felt a hand on my shoulder, forcing more tears out of me. The person turned me around, and I saw it was one of the people who had been stocking shelves. I practically hugged him and thanked him. He called the police. When the police arrived, they took the man away. I still remember the furious look on his face as he stared at me, as if blaming me. It was a mix of lust and anger. Later on, the employee that helped me called Amanda so she could pick me up. About a week later, I was told that that man had hurt several people and would later be convicted of not only that, but for taking someone's life. I was instantly scared all over again. This guy had been extremely serious, and if I hadn't been saved, If no one saw that I was in trouble, I would not be alive, and it would not be a very painless end for me. Sometimes that thought keeps me up at night. Amanda and I are still roommates, and she takes me to a psychologist every week. Some nights I even have nightmares that I was never saved. Let this be a lesson. If you're going anywhere at night or alone, at least bring some pepper spray, something to even the odds if you ever have an attacker. It couldn't happen to me. From The Goth Mistress 13. Location: Springfield, Illinois. I'm a 20-year-old girl from Springfield. Not nearly as large as Chicago, but just large enough to see new people every day. It's the home of Abe Lincoln, and we do get a lot of tourists. You know, the usual. As of writing this, the experience happened the other day, September 4th of 2018 to be exact. My day was going as normal for Tuesday. I got up at 7, went to school, then came home around 3 after having lunch with my mother. I laid down to take a nap, and my fiancé Austin woke me up at about 6:30 when he came home from work. He soon left for his second job, and I laid in the guest bed in my office for a few minutes, scrolling through Facebook. I had been seeing all these stories of women almost being abducted by traffickers, and being a 5'7", 325-pound woman, I never thought it happened to me. I'm too big, and most of the girls targeted are smaller and easier to grab. At about 9 o'clock, as I'm playing Sims, I remembered that the next day was my dad's birthday, so I texted my fiancé, "Hey, my dad's birthday is tomorrow. I'm gonna run to Walmart. Would you like me to wait for you to get home, or do you just want me to go?" He replied soon after, "You go ahead. I'm tired, and I won't be home until at least 10. Just text when you get home, okay?" "Okay," I replied. "I love you." He responded with, "I love you too." I grabbed my purse, slipped on my gray fluffball shoes, and headed out to my car. I'd done this plenty of times before. Even when I was 17, I'd go out at 3 a.m. doing this, so I thought nothing of this 9 p.m. excursion. I pull into the parking lot and park a little ways back because I just got a new car, and the people who go to Walmart around here are kind of rude and will just ding your car for no reason. So I got into Walmart, grabbed a cart, and proceeded to grab a cake for my dad, plus a couple of things for dinner the next day. I strolled down the main aisle near the food and turned into the women's section, looking at leggings for a while, and then remembered I was there for my dad. I began to make my way to the men's section. In one of these aisles, a man caught my attention. He was standing and staring at a display of children's underwear and holding a couple of items in his hands. He smiled at me and said hi, and me being the polite Midwestern girl I am, I smiled back and responded, saying hi. As I turned the corner, he called out to me. I stopped and turned back in his direction. Now, I don't remember the complete conversation we had, as he spoke very broken English with a heavy Hispanic accent, but it started with him wanting to see a tattoo that he saw on my back. I'm used to people wanting to see it, so I allowed him to pull my shirt down a couple of inches at the collar to see it. And while he did this, his fingers grazed my spine where the tattoo was. I never gave him permission to touch my body, only my shirt to pull it down. I quickly turned around. Before I could say anything else, he began to call me sexy, asked me if I had a boyfriend, asked if he was here with me, asked my name, my age, and where I lived. I responded with short to-the-point answers, and the response to my name was Harley, even though it's not. It's just a name I give to strangers. As I tried to walk away, he kept asking if he could add me on Facebook. I shook my head and told him no, I didn't add people that I didn't know in real life. He already had his phone in his hands, but only the camera was facing me. He didn't let the screen tilt away from his abdomen. Then he asked me a question that chilled me to the bone. He had asked, "Will anyone notice if you left this area of the store?" I didn't reply, as I was still trying to understand that question. But he elaborated, saying, "Will anyone notice if you were gone?" I responded at this point with, "Yes, my fiancé is out in the car waiting for me. I gotta go, I have some shopping to do." And as I tried to turn around, he gave me an unwanted hug, grazing my shoulder and exposing part of my back with his fingers. I left quickly and headed to the t-shirt section of the men's area. I heard the man very close in the next aisle, talking on the phone in Spanish. Though I have a Hispanic last name, I know nothing of the language, except to say that I don't speak it. I hurried away from that area, making random turns and running down aisles trying to make sure the man could not find me. As I found myself in the feminine products aisle, I noticed I was getting cold chills, but sweating profusely, as if I had just ran a mile. I found a bench in the garden center, so I sat down there, grabbing my phone to text my fiancé about the incident. He told me not to leave the store, and he would be there as soon as possible. I looked at the time, and it was 9:45. How had so much time passed? I didn't even remember being there nearly an hour. As I walked through the store, keeping an eye out for the man, my fiancé sent me a text saying he was waiting outside. I walked to the front, bought my items, and proceeded to exit. My fiancé was sitting in front of the entrance in his car, waiting for me to come out. I waved at him. Around the same time, I noticed the black truck with windows tinted so dark you couldn't see anything inside. That truck was parked there a mere 5 feet from the entrance, facing the wrong way. As I glanced at the truck, then back to my fiancé, Austin, the truck was thrown into reverse rapidly, and the driver sped off through the parking lot and parked at the exit. I quickly hurried to my car and threw the stuff in, locking the doors and not even bothering to plug my phone into the aux cord to call my fiancé. He simply followed me in my vehicle. We got closer to the exit, and the truck's lights never came on. But as we turned onto the road, the truck turned with us. They never turned any of their lights on, nor did they do anything else beyond that to try to stay hidden. There was no traffic that night as we reached the first light. I stayed slouched in my seat, praying to whatever God was out there that this person did not follow us home. As we got nearer to my house, a wave of relief filled me as the truck turned off onto a side road. We got to my neighborhood and took every turn we could, just in case they tried to make it seem like they had only given up. We got home, and I ran inside as my fiancé stood on the porch, scanning both ends of the street. I collapsed on the couch, crying. I ended up talking to an old teacher of mine a little later, and he put out a theory that when the man had touched me, there may have been a certain substance there that was commonly used to coerce people. Some very bad groups of people would cover their fingers in wax and then place the substance on their fingertips, making it much, much easier to take people they desired. That's why I got hot with cold chills. That's why I lost track of time. I'm not sure what I would have done differently other than ignore him. I'm just glad that I stayed aware of my surroundings, that I contacted my fiancé when I did. I never thought it happened to me in the Midwest of the United States, but it did, or nearly did. Stay safe out there, girls. I got my grocery list in hand and we're heading to Walmart. Risking my life for a slice of bread, apparently. Let's see what happens. Bring on the psychos, bring on the haunts. And, worst of all, the most intimidating part, bring on the door greeter. Ugh. Good night. Be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Don't forget, you can send me your stories at darknessprevails.org. We're looking for scary India stories and experiences from paramedics and firefighters. If you want to support this show, go to patreon.com/darknessprevails. Patrons unlock ad-free MP3 downloads of each episode. Or you can support the show by clicking the shop button below if you're on YouTube. If you're not, go to teespring.com/stores/darknessprevails and get some of my horror-themed merchandise. Thank you. Now, as usual, here are my 5 favorite early comments from the previous video about national park horror stories. Jose Chavez says, "When are you going to do more awkward live streams?" Well, I changed locations and now my internet is like 1/3 the speed I'm used to. I'd love to live stream, but it would be of really, really low quality, even lower than it used to be. But I'll see if I can't figure something out. Outsky says, "What's this? I'm early? Well, since we have some alone time, chicken nuggets or tenders?" Depends on the location, my friend, but a man such as myself doesn't dare choose between tindies and nuggos. The Weirdo Project says, "This channel is the most amazing people in the world." Yes, true that, because this channel involves all of you, and I couldn't be more thankful. Shh, I'm Bob says, "These stories are an amazing substitute for social interaction, especially on your lonely vacation. I'm still in that cabin, and I haven't perished yet. Hey, don't call it too soon, Bob." As Sarah Smith replied, "Those Wendigos are waiting. They're out there, even if you don't think they are, and they're always hungry." And TG Productions says, "Oh man, this is scary business." Exactly. I'm in the business of being scary. So, this brings us to the end of today's episode. But don't you worry, more scary stories are on the way, so stay tuned. Until next time, these are the credits to my amazing patrons. They're great people. Remember, stay safe out there and stay creepy, because this world is a strange one.